Welcome everyone to the fourth day of Best Virtual Summit and the second day of Work Beyond the Pandemic. Today we have with us Paul Peterson, Group Head of Human Resources at Atos. Atos is a global leader in digital transformation. It helps companies thrive through COVID-19 crisis. Now, Paul leads a team of 1,500 HR professionals across the world, and Atos employs 110,000 employees all over the world. So we have with us Paul, who will share with us a few things about the future of employment and how to prepare yourself for the new normal. Paul. Sorry, Paul, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, all of my friends across Europe, new and old. It's a real pleasure to get to speak to you today, and looking forward to sharing the view of myself and Atos about what work is really going to look like going forward after these really strange and difficult and changing days we've had over the last couple of months. And look forward to, after sharing my view, hearing any questions that you have and being able to take a few minutes to speak to you today. As you know, the kind introduction, my name is Paul Peterson. I am responsible for all of the people of Atos, 110,000, half of which are in Europe, where we hire every year 15,000 employees or more, including in 2020, which doesn't change this year. Even with COVID, we still continue to hire. Now, in Atos, what's important and how you learn every day is critical to your success. Number two, talent acquisition. We continue to hire, and in the future, this will be the same. The job market, maybe it's a little rocky today, but will soon stabilize, and opportunities will abound for those with the skills and the certifications necessary in tomorrow's market. Our third employee first objective doesn't change either. It's about having a diverse workforce and inclusive leadership. These goals are not impacted by COVID. And finally, our relationship at work for our employees, yes, will change a little bit, and I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. When I was young and not so young and maybe a little old today, I will tell you, I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars and ice cream, but maybe I love Star Wars the most. And I remember as a young boy, when the first Star Wars movie came out, when I was 7 years old, and going to the theater with my dad to see it. Once, twice, maybe 3 times. And as a young boy, how amazing it was. And the thought that the universe could hold these great stories. I would play Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. Some days I was C-3PO or Chewbacca. Some days maybe Princess Leia. But it was fantastic. And I spent that time in my heart through ages. And Star Wars, continued, and I still loved it. But an amazing thing happened the end of last year in Europe earlier this year with the launch of Disney Plus and a TV show they had called The Mandalorian and what the internet has called Little Baby Yoda, and reminding me that Star Wars is the same, yet it can be new at the same time and can energize and excite us and make us realize, how important something is in our life in the past and how it can change in the future. Well, colleagues in Best, this is the case with work. Work is changing, sped up by COVID. Now, I'm not going to talk about theory. I'm not going to talk about the future of work. I'm not going to talk about different topics that you may have heard about the last couple of days. But what I do want to share with you is some practicalities about how work is actually changing around us. Pre-COVID, the case in Atos and in many companies, a lot of office work, a lot of site work. In Atos, we had 20 to 25% of our employees working from home, but we had a strong office culture. That was important, which meant that face-to-face interaction was normal. That when you wanted to talk to somebody, it was very easy to walk down the hall or to pick up the phone, and that interaction was part of the normal workday, which gave you, as an employee, both new, maturing, and old, the chance to show people, physically show them who you are, what you stood for, and help them see the projects you were working on and the ideas that you generated. Now, sometimes in offices, that meant lots of cubicles and maybe lots of doors as we worked together. But it was important and is important to understand the office has its own culture. Something as you leave university and as you grow your career, you'll understand office by office when you're face to face with people. Well, the culture is something that you adapt to more than adapting to you. And it was a side-by-side nature, I think, of pre-COVID that often drove success. Even with global teams flying from country to country, seeing customers regardless of where you lived in the world. Now, we learned some things with COVID, and I'm sure you've heard the phrase, the new normal, the new working environment. It's true. But what I want to do is tell you a few things, give you a few hints about how work is changing around us. The workplace will be different. I suspect that you'll work from home some, you'll work with the client some, maybe you work in an office some. But the flow of the past, what you may have seen your mother or your father, how they worked, how maybe you worked as an intern, it's going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. I can see often, perhaps even full digital employment. In Atos today, you're recruited virtually. You're interviewed virtually. Decisions are virtual. You're onboarded virtual. And your first days of employment are often virtual. This can extend even further across sectors outside of Atos's in IT to other engineering sectors, and potentially because virtual communication is key. Not virtual data, not only how you talk on your iPhone, but kind of like today, where we're meeting virtually and sharing and talking virtually. So when you're not in an office, with an office culture driving how you work and how you think, you need your own sense of purpose, why you work, what you want to accomplish, and what is truly most important to you. Now, in Atos, across the globe, we have a sense of purpose, about our commitment on how we make our communities, our environment, our employees, and our clients happier, cleaner, more progressive, more energetic. So as you enter maybe a more virtual workplace, this sense of purpose needs to be yours to help you decide how you work. Now, this drives new feedback loops. I see pre-COVID often. If you wanted to know how you're doing, you just go ask somebody. Or you're interacting with a friend or a colleague every day. That comes up over lunch or with your manager, often face to face in a performance review or a check-in. In a virtual environment, that feedback loop is a little bit different and it takes some effort. But that effort, as new and developing professionals, is certainly worth it to then get on the webcam and ask, how am I doing? Or to pick up the phone and say, hey, I just delivered project X. What did you think? And how can I do better next time? These feedback loops are to be created, but by you as an employee, and not to expect others. Now, work-life balance. When you're in a virtual environment, and as you may have seen, virtual school, sometimes it's really easy for it to overtake your life, to always be on a device, to let work start early and go late. Be cautious, set boundaries, and remember, work is only part of life, and it creates and requires some balance. So the question is, in a new work environment, can you be flexible? Can you understand and work some days at home and some days at the office? Can you toggle back and forth virtually to physically? And can you manage that change where the daily social interaction might be weekly social interaction at work? Now, there's one critical key. And what I have to tell you is my strong belief that it is skills now that matter most. This becomes the work currency. Not who you know, not who you sit next to in an office. It's not maybe how long you worked, but it is the skills you develop. More and more as work is changing, it's a skill-based economy. It's what degree do you have? What certifications did you achieve? If you're in IT services and you're a system developer, are you up to date on the most current certification? Are you a SAP HANA project consultant? And are you up to date on your SAP HANA certification? Do you work in Google Cloud or in cybersecurity? Do you work in an architecture firm? Are you a cement engineer? All of these different skills that you have professional certification, which is transferable from one company to the next. And my belief is in the future, people will not be asking for somebody that has 6 to 8 years of experience in this job. But they will be looking for somebody who has a current certification in skill X. Particularly as we work virtually, it's these tangible, portable skills which will drive you in the future. What this tells me is we're actually going deep into our past on how we work. In the past, our Roman colleagues would work from home often and come together sometimes for projects, or for consultation, or for discussion when they needed to and come face to face. I think this is the future also, where we work from home often and then we come together to work on projects or to collaborate or to see customers and do those things necessary that are more efficient together instead of alone. I see this as almost as a round circle and really look forward to how this becomes more and more dynamic. But I have a word of caution. And I'm showing here a picture of where I grew up as a boy, where I saw my first Star Wars movies. I grew up in the United States, in a city called Salt Lake City, Utah. It's where the Winter Olympics were about 20 years ago. And the arrow that you can see is my house, and behind that are my mountains, and where you had some of the biggest ski resorts in the United States, and Park City and Snowbird and Alta, with great snow that's light as powder. When I was in school, the ski resorts got together and decided they needed more business on Tuesdays. That was their slowest day of the week. So they launched Skip School Tuesday, where they would send buses to all of the universities and high schools. And if you paid the bus driver $5, they would drive you up to the ski resort. They would arrive at your school right as the starting bell rang and would drive you up to the ski resort. You would ski for 4 hours or 5 hours. They would give you a sack lunch and drop you back at school just when the school day ended. So you can imagine that was super popular and a great idea for the ski resorts, and a huge temptation for the students, where you had to decide on Tuesdays, do you skip school and go ski and try to come home without getting caught? Or do you do what you're supposed to do during the day? And I think that temptation is the case today when you work from home, about skip work Tuesdays, maybe, where there's other distractions, maybe other things that you think, oh, I'll just do a little bit now and catch up later. A little bit now and catch up later is probably okay. Every Tuesday, for those students who went up to the ski resorts every Tuesday, they ended up with a big problem at the end of the year. So it takes, in the new working relationship that we have together, some diligence, some perseverance, and a little bit of courage to say, I do my work, I enjoy my life, but I cannot have all the temptations around me suck up all of my time. So as I finish today, I leave you with a couple of items as the things to remember from today's chat together. Number one, take time to develop great communication and collaboration skills so that you can manage both physically and virtually, interactive at any time. And remember, number two, that employment now and more in the future is a skill and certification engine. Focus time and energy so that you have up-to-date skills, professional certifications. This will help you ensure employability even when times are tough, will help ensure future earnings, and make certain that you have the right skills to have love for the job that you do. Third, become an expert in digital working habits. Know the technology, know the flexibility, and keep up to date. In the future in your professional environment. So my view on the future of work and the future relationship of employment is, if you do these four things, you have nothing to worry about, that you have great opportunity ahead, that you will be successful as you start and you progress your professional environment. All right, thank you very much, my friends. I appreciate the time. I think we have some time for questions today. Waleed, I turn it back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Paul, for this interesting keynote with some of the stories. For example, skip school Tuesdays. I think some people might relate to this. Definitely, students when they are at home and studying and preparing for exams, they can relate to the temptation that they have around them. Okay, we have a few questions for you. Maybe to start with the skills. You were talking about how tomorrow will be even more skill-based economy, and skills will be the new currency. And you mentioned even that tomorrow the need for certifications will be even more. Uh, my question is, what do you think about the skills that you or students gain without certifications? For example, volunteering in student organizations, working on projects such as this one, for example. How do you value them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think as a large employer, in Europe and in the world, that you should, my advice to you in your university days is use all of the time that you have to develop how you communicate, how you work on projects, and how you drive success. That all of the time you spend on projects like this, in terms of community projects, university volunteer, is super useful to developing those key communication and core skills. It will pay dividends. It will pay significant dividends, not only for myself and other private and public employers in terms of how we differentiate you, but also as you start a professional career, to know that you've managed complicated projects, that you've worked on groups where communication and collaboration were critical for your success, whether that was simply a grade or maybe something larger that you're involved in, it's really helpful. I think that as a society where learning is really valued, where the skills that you develop, of course, technical skills are certified, but all of these collaborations, do as much as you can so that when you're talking to a new employer, you can say, I've not only done X, but here's what I've learned, and here's how it's prepared me for a professional environment. So keep at it and don't think for a moment that they're valued less while you're in university. There's a difference between technical certifiable skills and the day-to-day interaction, communication, and collaboration skills, which take time and practice.
Absolutely. Our audience comes from all over Europe. They come from 90 plus European universities. Do you think that universities in Europe today, at least, do you think they prepare students properly in order to be able to work properly in the new work environment, or do you think they need more?
So I think the university culture and system across Europe is fantastic. When the students that we hire straight out of university succeed in Atos. Most of our countries, many of our countries have graduate programs to help you migrate from an educational to a professional environment, some longer than others. But my experience is that truly we have top notch, highly successful university learning across Europe. Now, I would tell you, and I want to comment that even today, in these COVID days, myself as in Atos, and I believe my competition and partners across Europe do not devalue the education, the experiences that you've had in the last months. That your degree today in 2020 or 2021 has the same value as 2018 and 2017 and 2019. And don't worry about that. Certainly, we know the world is changing. But utilize, I hope you have and you continue to utilize this time to not only finish your studies and continue your studies, but learn new skills so that when an employer asks you, man, the first half of 2020, it was weird, it was strange, it was difficult. What did you learn differently? What skills did you work on differently in the first half of 2020 than you did in the past? So that you can answer and talk about your collaboration, how online school or how online virtual projects helped you to develop these skills and these understanding. So I think it's an important learning time. It's not valued any less, but there are different things that you can learn and work on today that you were able to do in the past.
Absolutely. Staying on the certification and skills topic, we have a question from one of our followers. And they say, in the future, do you see these certifications being provided more by companies straight after high school?
I think it depends on the industry and it depends on the actual skill. My own view is that a university experience is is important. That it helps you develop, it helps you learn how to think, it helps you learn how to reason, it helps you work together on deadlines and challenges. I think that that experience is invaluable and should be pursued beyond just finishing high school, taking a professional certification, and going into the workplace. However, I do realize that there are some engineering skills which are changing, and that a strong and productive career can be started after high school with company provided certification and then moving into the workplace. Myself and in Atos, I would value much more strongly a university degree ready for certification than only a high school degree with some additional company provided training afterwards. So keep on your studies, finish. It's invaluable in terms of your experiences, your learning, and your future.
All right. So getting from the skills sphere to the work from home sphere or like study from home sphere. So like one of the questions is regarding the risk of working from at home, like the distractions one. Does Atos have anything in place to empower their employees to cope with this?
It's a great question. So I'm going to answer it two parts. So first of all, uh, Atos Worldwide really had a strong work from office culture, which was very predominant in most of our countries. We had employees working from home. We had employees working from home in most countries, sometimes full time, sometimes 1 or 2 days a week. Um, and honestly, I feel we believed that that strong office culture, that collaboration culture, could only maintain when we were in the office. COVID shattered, honestly, shattered that perception on what we can do home that we didn't believe we could do in the past. And if I think of some of our operations, we moved from office based full time to home based full time in less than 24 hours. So in terms of the future, we're still working on it. We don't rush to make a judgment. I'm not going to the press saying X, Y, and Z until I know exactly what can be successful to keep strong collaboration with ourselves and our customers, allowing much more flexibility at home. But what I can tell you is for our employees who are at home, whether it was during the crisis or who will continue to work from home after the crisis, I think about them every day. I worry about them every day. As we no longer see each other, I want to make certain that they're in a healthy work environment, that while they're at home, that work doesn't dominate their life, that they have the right collaboration opportunities with their colleagues, with themselves, with others outside of the company, and that if they are ever struggling and they need somebody to speak to, that wherever they are in the world, that they know who to dial either within the company or with professional health services to talk so that they can stay healthy in their bodies and in their minds. What I would counsel is as you're looking for employers in the future, you should, and they're telling you you will work from home. Some more or much of the time, you should be asking them what support do they have for home workers so that you can make good employment decisions and don't find yourself in a work from home isolated situation where you don't know who to turn to if you need somebody to talk. So I think right employers, kind employers, compassionate employers who want the best for their workforce, for their top talents, for their employees, provide those type of resources now.
All right. I think it's really important for young people also to consider the mental health environment in which they will get into when they start working. And I have a question regarding this. Um, a lot of companies today are facing the problem of having extra work, right? Like employees, they have to do some cuts, and now we have employees that are having to take extra work. Um, do you think that in the future it will still make sense to have the 9 to 5 work regime, or it will be more project based and then people will manage their time as they want, basically?
So I think there'll be some of both, honestly. I think that many people will still have a fixed work schedule that will be, either on the job or on a site, be with a customer, and it will be their normal workday, whether that's 9 to 5 or something else. I think that there are times for most of us, and some people will find this, I think, full time where projects and deadlines loom. I'm sure you've had those experiences in university where you've had a major research project or a lab experiment or a test where, as you prepared, for those deadlines, all of a sudden it was all consuming and it took much more time than normal. How you practiced and how you worked at university, that happens in the workplace also, where some of us you'll have huge projects and you might take a significant amount of time and then turn around and then have some downtime and rest time to recover. So I think the workplace is unique and for each of us individually. And back to my earlier point, flexibility now is more and more important to understand that, you know, that flexibility you take as a new employee and that as an employer we want to give you uh, means that some days are maybe skip school Tuesday days and you go ski, and other days it's cram for the exam and get ready for the project delivery.
Absolutely. Regarding the home or the office culture, some people yesterday mentioned in the comments that sometimes innovation happens in the breaks, in the coffee breaks, when two colleagues are just talking and then a new project comes in or a new idea comes in. So like the serendipity innovation. In an environment that is mostly home-based or like remote-based, how do you ensure that we have this serendipity of innovation?
Yeah, I think that's a real trick. And I think it's a nut that is partially cracked, but still needs more. I think there's a couple of answers. So number one, it's about being really comfortable in a virtual environment, just like you would be in a physical environment in the office place. So that collaboration can just be a chat between you and a colleague, on Zoom or on Circuit or Skype or another virtual platform where if you have an idea, you pick up you pick up the video and just have a chat and make it natural. I think when those skills continue to develop, those type of interactions will move physical to virtual. But I think that there's still things that in the professional sector that we need to figure out. How do we make those spontaneous interactions and that spontaneous thinking come to life in a virtual environment. My real belief is that for most of us, we will be virtually some of the time and physically some of the time. So the question is, when we're face to face, how does it differ in the future than it did today, where the cubicles are gone and the doors are gone? I can envision, an office turning into a giant Starbucks where you have, comfortable collaborations, a nice coffee bar, where you come in and the purpose of being face to face is to work and to talk and to think together. I look forward to that innovation where people come in, because they want to and because it's such an environment.
Pardon, it seemed that we missed the connection for a second. All right, maybe I would like to conclude with a question, Paul. If you were, like today, there are many recent graduates that, they graduated during the COVID-19 crisis and, freeze of employment in some sectors. If you were a recent graduate, right, today, what would you do? How would you prepare and how would you approach the beginning of your career?
So first, I have to tell you, stay optimistic. So and know that maybe there's a small blip today, but that the economy will recover and that work will recover. So stay optimistic and know maybe it wasn't right after graduation what you planned, but it will get there soon. Number two, I would tell you use your time wisely. Don't go and ski every day. Instead, continue to learn. Open your textbooks and stay current with your knowledge. Look out there and say, I've just, graduated with a degree in architecture. What can I learn over the next couple of months that will make me more attractive and more ready to enter the workforce with a new employer? So that downtime that you might have that you weren't expecting is a time for you to continue to learn and to continue to prepare for your next step. And what you'll find is that those of you who have graduated or who have recently or hope to soon enter the workforce, that can be a differentiator to be able to say, I spent my time the last 2 or 3 months learning X or preparing X or perfecting this knowledge that I was working on in university. That is super attractive to myself and in the market to understand that you're not just sitting back and waiting, but that you're doing things and preparing in a way that makes you stand out from everybody else. We love people who learn because that means when you come to the workforce, you will learn faster than others. So use your time wisely.
We are glad to hear this. As we invest ourselves, we encourage learning. It's one of our values and improvement. So I urge, of course, all the volunteers who are watching right today and all the students that are in touch with BEST to stay optimistic and do things and actually help shaping the change of what comes next. Paul, thank you very much. We appreciate very much the time that you took to share your experience with us and give to all our students some advices.
Thank you. And
Thank
good
you.
luck. Stay optimistic and keep learning.
Thank you very much. See you in the next live stream that is coming at 15:30. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.